Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Under Construction. This is episode number 111, and I am your host, Ellis, otherwise known as the Admiral, or Trainman, depending. This week, oh my god, look at all this grass that we did. This was just me just talking and doing grass, and it turned out pretty good, and we're probably going to continue doing a lot of this, because we are so close to being basically done with the grass situation. We're so tantalizingly close to being done with basically all of the grass that needs to happen on this part of the route. And that's awesome. So let's see if we can just polish it off and then move on to other things. But while I do that, I do want to be able to talk about something. There are a few things that I do want to talk about that hopefully I'll remember to circle back around to. I'll rattle them off so that if I don't, you guys can yell at me in the comments and tell me to come back to them. The first is the Transport Fever 2 gameplay video that came out, and my basically only concern about the game at this point. And the second is a slap fight I'm currently in on Reddit about Amtrak. So there's that. But I would like to take a comment or a few first, because, as I kind of anticipated, the last episode got some people thinking and talking, etc. I won't say it got people riled up, because it's not like there was a fight going on in the comments or anything, but it did get people to comment on what I was saying, because I'm fully aware of the fact that I got carried away, and I'll return to that as soon as I read this comment out. The anonymous P-51 pilot says, "I don't mean to be rude, but could you please not talk about that stuff? It's not that it offends me. No, not that. It's just that I'm tired of everywhere I go, I hear about that stuff. And I don't want it to corrupt my favorite YouTuber of all time. Thank you. I've been here through and through ever since that Minecraft Rails of War series that you did. You've brought me happiness. I know you're doing nothing but laying grass, but please talk about something else, like current railroad things, or the history of the route. Every route needs a story, remember that." Oh, I remember. You are one of the YouTubers that kept me from killing myself when I watched your videos. I hope you're better now. On a much happier note, since I've been watching, I've realized that some places are too clean, too used, if you know what I mean. Some places should look misused. I live in a city where NS, UP, and KCS meet. Our yard is never full, and half of the tracks are empty, overgrown, and falling apart. If you remember, on the route for the zombie train, there was a small abandoned mine near the entrance to the canyon with the industry at the other end. Could you add in something abandoned for me, please? Well, I can absolutely do that, and I will address that in a little bit, because I do intend to sort of get carried away looking at places where we could add something small and abandoned in this section of the route, again, before I forget to do it in the first place. But, of course, I want to address the other parts of the comment. I had a couple of little notes here and there. Now, when I initially read this, which was sort of back towards the beginning of the week, because again, I was concerned about the reaction that people would have to the video, or, the conversation that I was having, and with myself, of course. And not the typical concerns like, why are you talking to yourself for so much? Or for whatever. And I sort of, it got me thinking quite a bit about, like, well, what is the right way to respond to this? Obviously, the right way isn't two middle fingers, I'm going to talk about what I want, because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to talk about what people in the comments want to hear about, first and foremost, and then everything else to fill the rest of the time. So, obviously that isn't the right answer. I didn't seriously consider that. If you thought I was going to seriously consider that, I don't know what to say to you, but that's not a good answer. If you're ever confronted with this situation, not a good answer. So, and I appreciate the fact that you're bringing it up as, it's not that it offends you, it's just you hear about it all over the place, and I agree, we absolutely do. In this day and age, it's this sort of discussion is pervasive, but rarely is it good. It's mostly polarized, angry, full of half-truths. It's the kind of thing where, in modern day politics or just in modern day discourse, it doesn't have to be in the White House to be this way. We can't seem to make peace with one another, and we can't seem to stop talking about how the other guy is wrong. And I know full well that I base most of what I said around sort of giving a counter to what Brady Cure said. That's in part because I felt the need to provide the other side of the argument, but also because I feel like the discussion itself is necessary. It's more than the other side, it's the conversation. And it's unfortunate. I feel bad about the fact that it feels like I'm getting corrupted by this. It's the kind of thing that I really do love to talk about, and I've always loved to talk about it, but this show has never been a platform for political grandstanding or soapboxing, well, at least not most of the time. And it only really came around because there was an opportunity for discussion on it, and I apologize that I took it as far as I did. Certainly I could have wrapped it up in fewer words, in fewer thoughts, but I feel like at the end of the day I'm glad, I don't have any regrets. I'm glad I said what I said, but going forward I'll keep a meter on it for sure, for you. The anonymous P-51 pilot, whatever your name is. Naturally, you're anonymous. So, with that said, with the obligatory sort of apology segment out of the way, I don't want it to be I did wrong. Because number one rule is never admit wrongdoing. No, that's not true. What I'm meaning is that it came about and it came and went, and it's it's clear to me this isn't a you did wrong sort of comment. Even though at first glance I went, oh well, you get a little bit indignant when somebody questions you like that, but that's sort of a natural human response. There's nothing wrong with it, but you do have to step back and say, well, wait, was that right? And no, it wasn't right for me to start thinking indignantly about this comment. I was going to see if I could reply to it, in words, in a comment, but I don't typically do that. And I don't typically do that on this video anyway. And I didn't want to undermine the airtime. I just didn't want to end up talking about the subject again as like well, this is why I think it's okay to talk about it. The most I can say on that subject I already said, which is it's important to have discourse, but there is a limit to how much you can have in your life of that. And if you come here to, I'm sure lots of people, they come to YouTube to watch videos and be entertained, not to have that sort of thing. And I won't say that it is or isn't my place to discuss it, because this is a free-form show, but at the end of the day, it's not what most people come here for, I would figure. So, of course, Brady Cure was bringing it to my attention, and, we were having a back and forth on it, so it's not like I was coming out of nowhere with it. I don't mean to pin the blame on him. Don't get upset with him about it. Everyone is entitled to their say as to what sort of discourse happens on this show, because this show, it's for me to make a railroad, and it's for you guys to hear me talk. It's for you guys to listen to what I have to say about the things that you bring up. So, if you bring something up, I'm going to talk about it, but if you don't want me to, then that is just as valid of a position. Let's go back, and I think we have all the edges covered over here now, so let's go back and get the shrubberies in, and then we can move on to the other part of the comment. Because there are important things to address here, aside from the praise, which I deeply appreciate. I never expect to be anybody's favorite YouTuber, although I can remember a time where some of the smallest guys were absolutely my favorite people. There was this guy who went by the name of Nyoka28, I think, And he did a playthrough of Halo 1 and Halo 2, and I absolutely ate that stuff up. It was the best. And I could listen to that guy talk for hours. And, you know, he would be like, alright, and so I think that's going to end the video, and you'd look and there'd be 20 minutes left of the video, and you would just get giddy. Like what is he going to talk about? Like, because you would listen to him talk about anything, and, you know, you'll listen, if I'm really your favorite guy, I would hope you'd listen to me talk about anything, but obviously there's a limit to what on a certain subject you can hear, and what you come here for. So, you know, I'm obviously going to respect this comment. I'm obviously going to dial back. That doesn't mean I'm going to disrespect other comments if the subject gets brought up again, but those videos have passed now, you know, there are really no comments about that. There's one from Tristan's channel, which I'd like to talk about, and I'll talk about it probably towards the end of the show, because it's something that can get a little bit more involved. It's sort of a tangent to the discussion that we had for the last couple of episodes. And it's also a very well thought out comment by the looks of it, so I would appreciate, so I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate the comments from Brady in the past episodes, and on this episode, I appreciate the comment from you, Anonymous P51 Pilot. I don't know whether you're broadcasting over the radio or what. I don't know how you're getting the message to me, but you know, if you're still in the plane, you should probably focus on, you know, everything that's going on around you and not be watching YouTube while you're flying. But hey, that's your prerogative, I guess. So, yeah. Been here since the Minecraft Rails of War series. I would love to do more of that. I wish Rails of War was steadier and more updated. I'm subscribed to Nathan's channel, and when he puts out stuff about Rails of War, I kind of get a little bit giddy. But I can understand if he's sort of taken a step back from the project, maybe indefinitely. It's a huge thing, and he was overtaken, I'll admit, by something like immersive railroading. Rails of War was a fantastic mod. I will always tout Rails of War as the mod that gave us Minecraft trains. Immersive railroading and Traincraft and them, they gave us trains in Minecraft, yeah, but Nathan gave us Minecraft trains. And that was something special. You finally had this railroad mod that felt like it really fit in with Minecraft and Minecrafty things. And I have been so excited to get back into modded Minecraft in 1.12 and in the modular Minecraft series, and it's one of my favorite videos to make, even though it drives me up a wall sometimes. Although I don't know what is my least favorite video to make. I mean, it's not this, and it's not the podcast, even though the podcast is really tough to make sometimes just to get the people in for it. You know, maybe it's the zombie train because it's 15 minutes where, you know, it's 15 minutes, but it takes me a whole damn day because it has to come after this gets processed. But, you know, there's no video that I'm making that I don't want to make. If I didn't want to make it, if I didn't feel like it was, you know, the kind of thing that I'm here to do, then I wouldn't be making it. You know? I could always cancel the zombie train. It's been going on for a very long time, but I could always say, no, you know what, I'm done with that. I'm done with this. We've got all these comments, I'll address them in one giant video, and then, you know, whatever. It might be valid for me to start addressing more comments in a single video, but that undermines the time-lapse portion of it, because if it's an hour in length, then it's only 2 times speed, and if it's, you know, 2 hours in length, then obviously it's 1 time speed. I could cover 8 comments in that time, 8 questions, but, you know, it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. That, you know, the content in the video is the #1 priority of the video. That is the time-lapse version of Under Construction. This is the normal speed version of Under Construction. This is where you can see my methodology and ask questions and stuff like that. That is where, you know, I tell a story over a time-lapse. And the story is second fiddle. It really is. The zombie train is the zombie train, but up until very recently, it was not, or relatively recently in the series' lifespan, it was not the show where I'm telling zombie train stories. At least I don't think so. I would actually have to go back in the stats on that. I might be talking out of my butt. But Speaking of talking out of my butt, let me refresh this and see if somebody's upset with me. Not yet. Not yet. Okay. So, let me divert... No, because I want to finish this comment. I want to divert to this because it's so on my mind. It's weighing on my mind about as heavy... Actually, no. It's weighing on my mind right now far heavier than Anonymous P51's comment ever did. Which I hope I did my response to at least the first portion of that some sort of justice. Because I don't want to alienate viewers, and I want to keep people happy. And from the other comments, you know, Brady Cure definitely seems to respect P51 Pilot's point of view, and, you know, and that. You know, he does take responsibility for it, which he certainly doesn't have to do, not in the way that he has, because I could have just put the kibosh on that, but obviously nobody here knew that there was an issue until it was brought up, which is why you bring things up. So, anyway, let me finish the shrubbery to here, and then we will come back and do more of it, but until then there is one thing that I want to tackle, or the other part of this comment, or one other part of this comment. And it begins... but some places are too clean, too used, if you know what I mean. Places should look misused. I live in a city where an SUP and KCS, and whatever that is, meet. Our yard is never full, and half the tracks are empty, overgrown, and falling apart. If you remember, on the roof of the zombie train, there's a small abandoned mine near the entrance to the canyon with the industry at the other end. Could you add something abandoned for me, please? So, we're going to spend some time this episode building something abandoned. Now, whether that's an abandoned industry or something else, I'm not totally sure what I want to do yet, but we do want to at least put in the bones of something abandoned, so we're going to have to go down to an area where we're working still, basically. And that limits us pretty significantly. We've got this area here, which this is Lionhead, but there's really not much room to add anything else. Everything this way, I mean, there's the work camp, but that's obviously not abandoned. That's in full swing. There is stuff around Doe Cliff that I said I wasn't really going to work on this portion. But we could have some abandoned stuff over here. I mean, I was planning on having 1 or 2 industry tracks on this side, and then maybe a couple of abandoned industry tracks on this side, which would be excellent. But again, I said I didn't want to start on Doe Cliff yet. So let's go a little farther down and see what we run into here. So we've got that loop, rather. We've got this whole park, which this is abandoned. We have that lake. We have all this. Like, we didn't touch the edges of town mostly yet. And I probably want to put some sort of grassing along these dirty beaches here. Oh yeah, dirty beaches. This was supposed to be an abandoned industry up here, but I don't know what would go up here. Because I didn't really want this hillside to be dominated by anything. Okay, we have this industrial park down here. One of the other things I want to add a couple more warehouses. Dark gray. That thing is lame as hell. Warehouse 2. Because this area is a little bit too empty at this point, I think. There's not enough going on. And that, honestly, that warehouse looked kind of trash. I'm assuming that these came off the DLS because they just, frankly, aren't good enough to be not. But this has a freight dock, which we don't want that. I would just like some other warehouses here. What is this? Holy macaroni. I wish that was like half the size. Yeah, this looks good. We could add a couple of these side by side. We'll add a way for vehicles to get through in the middle there, but I don't actually know if these are going to be part of that or if they're going to be part of something else. They aren't going to be rail served necessarily. At least I'm not planning on them being. I just want more buildings over here. You know, these ancillary buildings that don't really do much, but they exist. Warehouse 3. So that's something. Let's see, if we turn this like this and make it parallel to the road here, that seems to make a little bit of sense. Actually, if I bring it up a little bit more. But then I kind of want to slide these back. See, now we're cluttering this space up, and I'm getting distracted. So, up here, I just had a grand idea. And this would be the kind of thing where, yeah, so we've just got a tie here blocking this off. And this would be the kind of thing where we would... This is going to become a set piece. And that's not something I really wanted to do. We do have plenty of abandoned stuff kicking around. I'm not sure if you/he/they, I guess, said that because I'm not building enough abandoned stuff, or because he feels like, or whatever, the P-51 pilot feels like they need to add more abandoned stuff to their route because now they're realizing that they don't have enough. That might be where you're coming from. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't necessarily understand the full context of the comment. I just sort of read it and went, all right, so abandoned stuff. That's what you like. And I like abandoned stuff too. I've talked about this sort of conundrum before, though. The thing with abandoned stuff is now once you build something that's abandoned on your route, you're now taking away space from something that could be functional. And this is the 50s, you're looking at your yard in the unnamed city in which you reside. And it's presumably got a lot going on there, and yet it has a lot of empty space. Now, that really isn't, it isn't surprising by any means. It's not unusual to have a lot of empty space in a yard like that, especially right now, because we're seeing a decline in freight traffic. But let's grab this height and let's do that. Let's make this relatively flat. I just need it to look good, honestly. I don't need it to actually be any good. So let's do a 1.5% gradient. We're falling into an old model railroader's trap, which is trying to fill the entire map with your entire layout with stuff. So this, honestly, I wish this wasn't this track. I wish it was a little less rusty. The thing is, with this track, we really only have a couple of choices. So I want to take this. I want to flatten it out right now. And I want to bring it into here, like this area, which I think we were going to make this a factory at one point. So that's flat, that's 2%. I'm okay with that. But really, I want to see this area properly worked out as if I was actually building. Just because it's abandoned doesn't mean it would have been built shoddily. Just because it is shoddy doesn't mean it would have been built shoddily. And so we have this storage track now, and we have this switchback which leads up to something over here. And my map does not like zooming out like that, I guess. I want to bring this down so it lines up. But what I'm thinking of, right, just to spoil it right off the bat, is because this was asked for by an anonymous P-51 pilot, this is going to be a former military production facility. Not necessarily airplanes, but something. So let us grab this height here. because it is relatively easy to make an area that is effectively abandoned, because, or at least recently abandoned, because then you can get away with stuff like just empty lots of pavement and things like that. Whereas generally you can't do that. That's the kind of thing where, if you were to do that, people would wonder where the life is. If you're supposed to have an area that has some livelihood to it, people will wonder where the life is. So I am going to add a second track here. So we're going to have 2 tracks running down this way. I don't know what's going to be here yet, but we need some warehouse buildings, and we need some abandoned ones. Oh, don't do that. Maybe these are storage, maybe they were something else, we don't know yet. We'll have to see as time goes on. Let's see, I do need some sort of factory building. Again, preferably an abandoned one. This is nice, but it's way too big. So this is going in the right direction. Oh my god, don't do that. This is... oh, that's actually a pretty good size. So we have this. Now how is that going to work in? We've got a couple of these abandoned factories. We've got this over here. Stop! Just get rid of them. This is almost like an administration building type, but it has a cargo loading area. So we will want to bring a track over to that. We want some sort of... something with stacks, Okay, that's too small. We want some sort of abandoned boiler house. That's old. Then there's this, which I don't know about this. This is a box factory. Can we slide one of these... okay, this is going to be real dumb. I wish I could mirror this, actually. If we could slide one of these all the way in. That up, poking out the other side. Excellent. That actually turns out pretty good. I want to line this up with a window if I can. Damn it. Damn it, I'm so close. Well, don't look on that side. Mason showed me the art of kit bashing buildings. Okay, so this... again, we're looking for a fairly... we're looking to create a fairly dense complex here. And really, I'm just going to be throwing buildings together. But... we can have something. This is all going to be abandoned anyway, so it doesn't need to look particularly good. As long as nothing's got smoke coming out of it or something like that. Oh, you know what? Chimney. Chimney. Let's see. I want one without smoke. Nope. Nope. Chimney. This doesn't have any smoke. But boy, is that a thick chimney. That is not an industrial chimney at all. Now that is what I'm talking about. Holy macaroni. Look at this thing. It's a monster. It's a thick chimney. Can we get some other ones? What is this? What the heck are you? Oh, you have smoke coming out of it. Otherwise, I would actually consider that one. I just put down a chimney. Where'd it go? For this. Oh, there it is. Here, let's. Oh, good lord. What's up with this thing? You need some three-dimensionality to these things, because... Oh, for God's sake. I hate it when they're like this. Because these complexes are not all flat, you know? They have stuff like this. They've got chimneys poking up, they've got antennas, they've got other stuff. You know, buildings with different heights and things like that. And a lot of the time they have towers, so I don't know... Yeah, these guys smoke. So I don't know if there is a... Yeah, see, I hate that. I hate that it's like that, but if I shift it over, then it looks incredibly dumb. Well, like that, I guess, looks fine. Oh, but where's the fighting on that side? There. If I shifted everything over a little bit, I could get a track in here, which would be kind of neat, but also very awkward. The thing is, though, I'm thinking... that a coal trestle here wouldn't be absurd. Because if we've got this, if this is like the power plant for the building, unless they're running this off of oil power, which might make sense if they added a whole bunch of new construction. So that would then make sense that you have like an oil loading rack here, right? So... Oh, you know what? You know what would actually really sell this area? If I did this all with... Yeah, hold on. I've got an idea. This is actually a really nice change of pace from doing all the grass. So I know it's not really what we're supposed to be doing right now, but I'm doing it. We're gonna do all of it with this, and then we're gonna pave this entire area. So, actually, maybe except for the things over here. Let me just put that down so I remember I have it. Because the things over here, you know, if you think about it, you might want these to be on sort of like a depressed pad if you had a spill of oil. But I don't know about this as the ground material. Let's, you know, I'm looking for another. Looking for another kind of track that I can use for specifically this. Although I don't know if that's warranted at all. That's kind of trash. Maybe we can get. Okay, so what about our good track? That obviously isn't going to look good, but I don't know what Jara is. And it looks too good. That's the issue. It doesn't have rust on it. And that, I mean, it doesn't really matter because it, well, it matters that it doesn't have rust on it. That is the oldest track on the planet. Track only rusty. Let's see. Or just rust. Let's just see rust. That is slightly wider than standard gauge, right? Yeah. So that won't look great. I guess we can do that. Because the thing with this is that the rails are shiny. So that's not good. This is actually pretty good. 420 blaze. Increased sway. I don't know why you need 100 different kinds of rails only track. I kind of just want a set without ballast, and I'll use that over here. But if we had a rusty bridge track or something like that, that would be the most appropriate thing we could probably put here. So this is your generating station for this area, and we're going to grab this track, and we're going to tie it in to our current connection, although we are going to be changing that connection so that we can get some other stuff in here. Straighten those guys out, although they are not parallel. I was wondering when I would notice that. I was wondering when I would notice that. What a weird sentence to make. Straighten... Oh, that's already straightened, huh? Oh, and because this isn't exactly lined up... No? This is acting kind of strange, actually. Yeah, and we'll bring this in here, and we'll bring this building over to it. Because, I mean, you build the buildings really around the trains. Around where you can get the tracks, anyway. And we're going to scoot all of this over. Because these two guys down here, that one's a storage track. This one is sort of a lead. The other thing we can do if we really wanted to go above and beyond is to vary this so that it's like, there are segments that have, oh crap, there are segments that have this and don't have pavement on top of them, and then there are some segments that have pavement on top of them. That's not really something that I want to bother attempting, but it's something that we can do. Give me that again. Straighten that out, straighten that out. But yeah. Okay. We're still on the 420 section. Straighten that out. That makes things a lot better. You know, these mills are built around this exactly. This what's the word? This corridor where you can fit a train down in the middle. I don't think I really need to straighten that out because we're about to replace it with this kind of track. Goodbye. And we're back. We're going to push these two close together, as we do. We're going to do the same with this, bring it down here, and that's going to be the edge of property. And then all of these need to get filled in. Building this like this is basically confirming that there was a war in this universe, which we haven't established much of anything about. Now, you did bring up that every railroad needs a story, and boy, I've been going crazy with that stuff. I haven't touched upon it lately, but doing the background for the Everett Lake Railroad and Navigation Company, that was, or Mining and Navigation Company rather, that was actually pretty fantastic. I really enjoyed doing that. I just haven't had the time to do more. Like I said, the last thing that I started was this line here, but the Valley line, because I really wanted to tell that story. And I think we're going to slide this over one more window. But then I have to move the chimneys. Nah, I guess we're not going to do that. Oh, you know what we can do is we can actually flip these, push this to over here, and this to over here. Although we want this to be back over here. There we go. Get rid of that. That doesn't help anybody, really. Wait a minute, huh? Is this really that steep of an uphill? Holy crap. I guess it is, huh? What? Wait a minute. Oh, because this stuff is... Oh, crap. Doing terrain with this track is a nightmare. I forgot about that. Oh, no. Now I'm reconsidering my stance on what we're doing here. The other thing I'm going to do in order to help us with our switch problems is this, which this is complete absurdity, but we're going to do it. Oh, shucks, we're going to need another thing there. Due to the way this was built, you have to sort of make a switchback to get into either of these drop-off locations. Oh, careful, I don't want this thing to friggin' spaz out on me. Which, again, is sort of shaped weirdly. And I would rotate this building, but we've already got those stacks in place. So we've got our storage track. I'm actually just going to delete all of these. Because a lot of these, they sometimes didn't even have switch stands at all. So we have, this is our abandoned military something or other facility, which we're going to have an empty lot here that's going to be full of stuff. And then most of the rest of this is just going to be empty lot, which... Let's see if we can get some pavement here. Although, actually, we've been using some pretty good pavement down here. That. Oh, I guess I was pretty close to it, huh? Wait a minute, what am I doing? That's not the right one. What is this other stuff that we're using? Oh, is it the same as that? Yeah, it is. TS09_03. Come on. What about this? What about 06? Oh no, I've said it. Here comes the ghost of 06. Because I want this to be pretty blank and bland, just gray pavement. Whether that be because I made it ballast or because I made it... I want it to be lighter than that. I want it to be almost this color. So I'm going to need to find something that belongs. What time is it in the episode? Holy cow, we've already gone through 44 minutes. I have way more to cover. So, this is going to be your something abandoned, dude. This is what you're getting. I'm finally putting something on this hilltop. Originally, I was planning on doing it, and then I decided, nah, let's not. And then here we are right now, making one of the larger industries that I've made, except it does not operate. So, yeah, that's, congrats. You made me do this. I need pavement. I need it to be less contrasting than that, you know, close to this, but that's a grid. Let me just punch in concrete and see what we get. We have the darker concrete, but I don't want that. This is too bright, honestly. It's good, but it's too bright. This, I think, is not going to tile well. No, it does not. That also doesn't tile well. I need something with very little contrast. This actually looks alright. We'll have to get in here and do like a smattering of other things to make this look really good, but that's going in the direction that I'm thinking. And at any rate, we're going to have to drop this down anyway, because hold on a minute. You just watch, just watch. I'd like you to elaborate more, Anonymous P-51 Pilot, on what you were getting at when you were saying things are overgrown and empty and falling apart, and you know, places should look misused. I'm not sure if that was directed at me, like, hey, you should do more like that, because on one hand, yeah, there's plenty of places like that, but on the other hand, this is the 50s, and that, you know, that era didn't quite happen yet at this point in time. You know, this is very much a glory days sort of route, so I'm probably not going to have too much that's abandoned, but we will definitely be seeing stuff that is. Like I've pointed out, we have a smattering of places like that already scattered across the map, and this is just going to add to the list. I mean, we've got the farm at Ashbury Ranch, we have the the Icer House, technically. We have an entire industrial park over here that is no longer rail served, as well as a yard and everything, and an industry back there. So we have plenty of things that are kicking around that are abandoned. Olive doesn't really so much, but that's okay. You know, there isn't going to be that much, but you're right. There will be things like that, and there should be things like that. So, you know, keep providing input like that. I really appreciate it, and we will see how these things turn out in the end. Let me just go through this real quick. Brady Cure says, sorry, I was the one who brought up communism. I'll stop if you would like me to stop talking about. Marty Robbins says, isn't the current railroad things for the terminus? At Marty Robbins, Brady Cure replies, it's a channel about trains. At Brady Cure, Marty Robbins replies, I know, but way I see it, talking about trains can get boring. Coming from a foamer who has lived and breathed trains, it can get real boring. Same goes with any subject, but think talking about engine specs gets pretty damn boring, especially when every other channel is just tutorials or route builds. And at Marty Robbins, Brady Cure says, I know, but we've been talking about communism for 3 weeks. Yes, comrade, we have been. But, I mean, I will cover railroad-related stuff. I do try to save all the news for the podcast, but that doesn't mean I can't talk about that stuff here. There are definitely some things that I'll probably never get to talk about on the podcast because the podcast is just huge. One of the things that we didn't get to cover last time on the podcast, which I was excited about, was it was something really sort of funny that happened during the trip. And I was thinking about it earlier, and now I've completely forgotten. So, never mind. Just ignore me, I guess. Give me that height. Is it actually 1258 or 2058? Yeah. Okay. So, where is my radius? So let's uncover these tracks and lower these, drop these buildings down. because they are way too high at current, because they're up on little hills. Especially the big guy over here. We're also going to need to get a road up here, and that's going to be a project for another day. Or, well, it's going to be a project for today, really, because we're just going to continue doing this, but it's just, it's the next thing. It's the next thing down the line. I also want our patented oil unloading rack. Let's see, rack. No? Oil unloading. Nope. Oil loading. There we go. That says Texaco on it. We can't use that. Just the military is using branded oil. Which, I mean, wouldn't be surprising. But you've got to get it from somewhere. You pick the guys with the best deal. The greatest deals. So, okay, there we go. We just merged these two guys together. We've got lots of oil unloading. Lots of it. Loads. Unloads, as a matter of fact. Is there anything else that we need up here? But yeah, that was a conversation between Marty Robbins and Brady Cure about what to talk about on the show. And the answer is, there is no correct answer. We can talk about whatever you want me to talk about. So, you know, if you bring up something that you want to hear just my take on, then you'll hear it, you know. I will speak on it. But, you know, that doesn't mean we have to cover the same subject all the time. So this has been a very much a meta show today. Let's see. Brady Cure also said, also, could I possibly hop on with you next week's Under Construction, or on next week's Under Construction, and discuss something other than communism? Well, we're discussing other things, but, and I did entertain this idea for a little bit, but I do try to keep Under Construction for just myself, mostly. I mean, Madison makes an appearance here and there, and occasionally we've had other people on, but in general, on the whole, I try to keep Under Construction for myself, because it's a time where I get to just sort of jibber-jabber. Not that other people would necessarily get in the way of that, I can talk over anybody, but it's the kind of thing where, you know, it's just it would be a different kind of show if I spent more time. What are we doing? It would be a different kind of show if I spent more time doing, you know, having more conversation with more people. I actually kind of like this, except it's... How will this look if we do the whole area with it? Turns out real bad. Actually, not that bad. Let's turn the radius down. As long as the scale is up, and as long as we keep on moving. Yeah, it is obvious that we have a spun texture here, but it's not that obvious. It's not that bad, but I wish it was a little bit lighter. This is actually really good. I was just like, you know, I don't know about this. But the more I look at it, the more I like it. That is really, really pale. It has some texture to it, but not too much. And my computer's completely freaking out. Sorry. Brady Cure also says, this is the last comment by him, he wrote, Ellis, I would just like to explain that you've been having a discussion with a 12-year-old. Well, you know what? There's no time too early. There probably is, but in general, if you are old enough to have an opinion about these subjects, you're old enough to consider that opinion and think critically. And more importantly, again, it's not necessarily about the subject matter, it's just about the discussion. It's about the discourse. that's the kind of thing that's so difficult, that we keep falling into holes about, because we've become poor at it, and we don't know how to just treat each other nicely and have a conversation with people who don't agree with us and that sort of thing. It's a real failure, and I wish that it wasn't that way. So I'm now second guessing this, because it is really bright, but at the same time it's not that bad, and maybe if I lay some grass down on top of it, it'll look different. And also I want to raise this by just a hair so that we get the ties. Yeah, there we go. I also want this to be sort of dirt under here. Maybe we can use these different kinds of pavements in more than one place. So we have this under here. And I want to have some sort of thing over here as well. But this also deserves some sort of different colored pavement. Coal small ground. No, that's not good. Coal ground. That's a little better, but that doesn't really look like what I want it to look like. Man, whenever I'm loading these textures, Tane just has an aneurysm. So, I'll talk about whatever. You can bring it up to me. So, speaking of things I want to talk about, also somebody pinged me. Hold on 1 second, who pinged me? Oh boy. Oh, it's just memes about the Tesla truck. I can cover that in a minute, because holy cow. Let's see, I haven't had a response yet. That's probably a good thing. Anyway, I started a slap fight on Reddit. And by that, I didn't actually do that. But what happened is, here's the, well, actually, now I didn't get into trouble, if that's what you're worried about. What did happen is I go into a thread about Amtrak CEO has no love lost over cutting back of dining cars and long distance services. That sort of thing. The stuff that we've been hearing this whole time, it really should come as no surprise to anybody that is the discussion right now. And, of course, there are people in the comments, because there's plenty of variety, talking about, well, maybe it's worth it, maybe it isn't worth it, maybe this, maybe that, I don't agree with this, or I agree with this, or whatever. Reddit is a place where you've got a lot of people with different opinions, for the most part. It definitely gets a little circle jerky, excuse me, from time to time, but by and large, you can find differing opinions across the internet of Reddit, and have decent discussions with people. So I did something which is relatively out of character for me, which is I decided to voice a relatively strong opinion just right off the bat, and that opinion was that basically you can't expect Amtrak to make money. These things are a public service that we're providing. But I didn't really get into the whole dining car thing, because the dining car is sort of ancillary to the having long distance trains situation, where, yeah, obviously you want, if you're going to be on a train for several days, you want to have a hot food option. But just having those long distance trains, that becomes the first question. And so I just brought up, like, I can't remember what exactly I said, but it was something to the, you guys have heard me harp on about it before. It was something to the point of the long distance trains are running a service. People who want to cut the long distance trains are missing the point of Amtrak, which was to take over the national passenger rail network from the last operators of it, and And, it's it's a mistake to sort of go along with that if you're, I don't remember exactly what I said, and I can look up my exact comment here in a second, but I want to have these big tanks. I need a couple of big tanks. Everybody needs some tanks. No, you know what? Yeah, it's fine. 0.7, 0.8. And let's scooch these a little bit farther apart and a little bit closer to the building. What was my exact comment before I start this crap again? I know they are money pit, but in my opinion, anyone advocating the cutting of long-distance passenger rail services is missing the point of the founding mission of Amtrak, to maintain a nationwide passenger railway network. We should be under no delusions about the organization turning a profit, even though they are breaking even this year. Allegedly. They are running a public service, and funding them is analogous to funding highway maintenance or airport subsidies. For the sake of a better connected country, it is one of the things that we need. And I am not going to post the whole thing and have you brigade the guy that disagreed with me, but I'm going back and forth with him at Current about, what the need really is. Could it just be replaced with buses? I mean, most people that are supporters of Amtrak obviously will say, of course not, you can't just replace it with buses. Reason being, bus service is, frankly, it sucks. If you've ever been on a bus for that long, you know it sucks. But that's neither here nor there. When you're doing something like that, it doesn't really matter how much it sucks as long as it works. And, it's fewer people use them, blah, 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 blah. This is a whole thing. You can break that whole thing down. If anybody would like to get involved in discourse on that, feel free to leave a comment about it, because we can absolutely talk about that. That is very much a thing suited for this show, where you've just got me here, and we can talk about the pros and cons and whatever, and we can really spend time to break down some of the stuff that you might not be able to do in a Reddit comment. Oh, I mean, Reddit is actually pretty good for that. But maybe in the format of the podcast, because the podcast is relatively short. Whereas this, we can dedicate 2 hours to an entire topic if we so needed to. So, like we have done with communism for 3 weeks. But, that's just something to think about. And so that's my most recent calamity on Reddit that I started. Because I just had a response to this guy, and then he had, I wrote that, and then somebody wrote a response to me, and then it went from there. Because, yeah, that's how that goes. I'm really not sure what else to do with this area here. I don't know what this factory is doing. I just know that it is here. Or was here, anyway. So, I actually am going to get rid of this, because, oh no, you know what? I won't. I'll leave that there. And let's grab this buffer stop. The thing we don't need to do with this is add those invisible track segments. Yeah. Okay. Put that there. There we go. We will basically never, ever need to use this whole thing. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. If you do recall, originally I had something set up that was not too dissimilar to this. It's also one of the first times I've used those giant tanks, and it's kind of funny to look at it like, well, yeah, this was just built, and then they got rid of it. And then they shut it down. What is going on? Why is my computer having so much trouble today? I don't know. Anyway. So there's your abandoned thing. We'll go back to grass in a second. Now, Tristan's channel said... Now, here we go again. On the issue of PTC being able to basically run a train by itself and the eventual establishment of one-man crews, I can say from personal observations that will probably not work for the time being. I'm not sure how many times in mountainous terrain or isolated areas that PTC has either ceased to function or has given crews false signals compared to their physical counterparts. Unless the system is improved to work in the extremely rural areas of the US, which I'm sure it will at some point in the future, I can't see the current Class 1 railroads adopting one-man crews across the board. And I might add, as we previously mentioned, so this is me talking now, I might add, as we previously mentioned, that one-man crews, as of right now, cannot be adopted across the board because we're currently looking at a situation where several states have introduced legislation that forbids one-man crews. So even if the railroads wanted to, and even if they had the tech to do it, they wouldn't be able to do it right now. Don't panic. However, he makes a lot of very good and interesting points. Now, I don't know, or didn't know anyway, all the limitations of PTC and all the issues that it's having. I know, of course, that it's having issues. I know that it is imperfect, but it is very, very new. And of course it's going to be. Now, until we get Elon Musk saving the day with his, cloud, whatever, constellation program, where we're going to have 1 million satellites broadcasting Wi-Fi down to Earth. Until that happens, I don't think that we're going to do great in terms of signals unless they're coming from, like, augmented GPS satellites. Now, GPS satellites are pretty good at what they do, but basically they're only just giving you a time. So they wouldn't be very good at transmitting complex data, which is why a constellation of Wi-Fi satellites is actually kind of useful. And no, you're absolutely right. Right now, I don't think it's on the table, and certainly across the board, it isn't, because, well, the tech isn't there, the public opinion isn't there. Railroads aren't quite ready for it. They've been wanting to do it for a long time, but that doesn't mean they're ready. I was going to make an analogy there, but I think I'll spare you guys that one because it was kind of inappropriate. I know, when has that ever held me back? This time it will. So, I had to mark this channel for kids. I didn't actually mark this channel for kids. These videos are not for children. They're for young adults. Or adults. Or, I guess, I mean, if you're elderly, you're still an adult, so, yeah. Anyway, that is my target audience. You know how you can tell if you're my target audience? You're hearing me say this right now. So, except for you, you're 6. Go back to watching Peppa Pig. Although Peppa Pig is a little bit old for that. Maybe SpongeBob. SpongeBob was hilarious. Still is hilarious when I was 6. We're getting a new SpongeBob movie, actually. Which, I don't know what to think about it. I've seen the animation style for it. It's like, whoa, what is this? We're getting a new Scooby-Doo movie, too, with a whole new animation style. And, speaking of animation styles, Sonic got redone and he actually looks good now. So, let's all go see that movie. I know this has already been perpetuated, but I have gone from, oh, there's a Sonic movie, too. I should go and see this movie because of the redux of Sonic. I've watched the trailer more than once. So, anyway, what was I saying? PTC. PTC. Positive train control. It's coming along. It's gonna get better. It needs to know when it's not working right. That is one of the hardest things you can teach a program, is when to throw an error because you're not working right. But, you know, when to self-recognize that there's an issue. But, you know, obviously physical signal systems, that's going to matter. See, the PTC doesn't have to be perfect because it's got another human at the helm. Humans don't have to be perfect because they've got PTC to help them, or, you know, other crew members which can fill in for their own deficiencies. If somebody's not paying 100% attention, then another crew member can say, hey, you know, look, there's a red signal or a yellow signal or something. You know, Or, we've got to do XYZ if you don't know. Obviously, engineers should be completely in the know as to what they need to be doing with their trains, but no human is perfect, so we have to, we have more than one to back up the other. If PTC can get to the point where it will at least notice when the engineer is doing something wrong, then that's, that's pretty much the requisite for a one-man crew. Now, again, it's not going to be perfect. The human needs to be able to recognize when PTC is doing something wrong, or, when the computer in general is doing something wrong, which they're generally pretty good at doing right now. But, you need to come up to speed with this new system. I don't really have too much else to say about it, because Tristan's channel does an excellent job of enumerating the good and the bad right now. And I did talk about it at length last time. Obviously, companies, they want one-man crews because it's cheaper. People, in general, want PTC because of more oversight and more control, etc. More backups in case something goes wrong. That's a good thing. Obviously, labor unions, engineers, conductors, they don't, and other railway operators, they don't want to see their ranks cut down any more than things like precision scheduled railroading is already doing. Which, that is absolutely one thing you can attribute to PSR. Is cutting back on crew requirements. Because fewer trains. But, that's the kind of thing. They obviously don't want to see their ranks cut down anymore. They want to be able to, have job security, so they don't want to see a move to one-man crews, PTC or no PTC. It's a relatively, despite the fact that it has a lot of facets and there is no right and wrong, it is a fairly straightforward situation in terms of you can understand who's pushing for what and why. And you can also understand that, GPS is not perfect. You ever take your cell phone out in the mountains and try to get a GPS signal, it's not going to do great. So, it's understandable that it is very much an imperfect system, and it has its failings, and it needs to be improved upon. How are you going to get these transmissions from GPS or whatever into areas where it's really hard to get signal? That's a good question. Are you going to be setting transmitters up along the rail line, and are you going to be setting, running cable along the rail line like you already do for the signals, etc.? Are you going to be transmitting directly through the track into the locomotive? Because that's, that is an age-old practice, relatively speaking, in terms of railroad tech, which can work fairly well. What are the solutions? And going forward, I'm sure we're going to see, despite the fact that PTC is basically a standard across the board, we're going to see different railroads try different things. We're going to see them, experiment with how to make it work really well, because once you have it, you've satisfied the FRA requirement. If you have it and it's enabled, but the railroads are going to want to make it better because it is flawed at current. They're going to want to see if they can make it perfect, and that is obviously the really hard part. But again, once it does a better job than a two-man crew, then I'm certain we will see a much stronger and heavier push towards one-man crew operations, and the legislation that's being brought up to keep it in place is either just going to be an obstacle to go around in several cases, or an obstacle to eventually be knocked down. Because, oh boy, it is a hard thing to do to slow the wheels of progress for any significant amount of time. Even if the wheels of progress mean some pretty unfortunate things. Alright, so we have... Check this thing out. We have grass. Basically, from town to town. Oh, we need to... Wait, did we put in shrubs over here? Yeah, we did. The only thing that we're missing now is grass along this side of the highway. And then we can start filling in basically this entire area. It is going to be ritual suicide for me to really go ahead and try to fill this whole area in one fell swoop, because, boy, that's a lot of grass. But, or that's a lot of trees, a lot of copy-pasting. But I will do as much as I can. So that, if we're going to do that, it means I have to fill in the other side of the highway here. So that's, that's got to be our priority right now. Because if we want to do that in 15 minutes, then that's what we're going, this is our prereq. So we've got to move through here pretty swiftly. It doesn't really matter if it looks pretty or not, because this is the highway, nobody's coming over here. As much as I was considering the idea of, well, when we get the road work, the road system done, I can put invisible track down on the roads. Yeah, that's going to have to wait. That I'm not doing now. That is a future project. If you guys want to see it happen, say so, and I'll make it happen. I'll dedicate an episode to it, but remember that you guys have that power. If you see something that you want to happen, write in the comments, and I will spend some time doing it. I spent plenty of time working on that little abandoned factory up there, which, it's not really so little, but that is a U.S. military installation, or not U.S., but whatever, a military installation, and we will have to see what it ends up looking like in the end, and we're going to have to wrap that up, I guess. Let's go from the other side. The thing is, we don't necessarily need to do, we don't need to go crazy with this road. We really don't. When it comes to texturing it, we don't need to go crazy. And when it comes to grassing it, we don't need to go crazy. Because, again, who's going to look at this? This is the highway. It goes out to the middle of nowhere. So, once we get some grass down so that what you're seeing from the tracks is not bare, that's all you really need to worry about. Also, let's see, do I have another reply? I'm honestly scared. I'm scared of a reply. I had originally told myself that, and I have a couple of people that back me up. Anyway, so I like that. It is also, the hypocrisy here is it's in the transit subreddit. I won't actually call that hypocrisy. It's kind of rude to say, or it's wrong to call it out as such. But when you are in the transit subreddit, you expect people to be pro travel, trains, that sort of thing. That said, it's not like he was saying can Amtrak. He was saying replace it with a bus service. Replace long-distance services with a bus service. But still. That said, to come back to my original point about Reddit, it is not just an echo chamber. It can be at times, and it depends where you go. Certainly some of the more niche subreddits can be, especially some of the more niche political subreddits can be, but by and large, if you're in the main area of Reddit, you are going to find people with widely differing views, and you're going to have a discussion on them, and I hold nothing against this guy, and I was like, the saga continues. I was posting, updates to my commenting, which I only had a couple of comments, but they took me a while to think through. Which is what you want, think before you speak. And it's the kind of thing where I don't know. I feel like for a second there I really ripped into this person that you guys don't even know and is not here to say anything for himself. Obviously, so it's not fair to me to just tear into him like that. So, I don't want to act like, well, he's being such a hypocrite because we're in the transit subreddit and you're only supposed to say good things about Amtrak in the transit subreddit. But that's not true. this is Reddit and this is the internet. You can say whatever you want, pretty much. Whatever you want within reason, I suppose. But it seemed to me like it was just sort of a defeatist attitude when it came to Amtrak. Whereas, and maybe it's not logical enough that I continue to stand by the motto, or the whatchamacallit. Oh god, I named it earlier. What is it called? The, reason for Amtrak's being. Maybe it's not logical that I stand by that, because it costs a lot of money. That lot of money may be a drop in the bucket compared to lots of other spending that we do here in the U.S., including even the money we pay to keep roads upkept. But at the same time, what is that money doing for us? If, just because you're not losing a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay to lose money. I don't know. I'm getting political again. I'll take a step back from it. It is trains, at least. It's train related. It's Amtrak related. I tried to. So, I might be having a visitor here in the next month or so. He happens to be a lamp, and I'm going to be keeping him in this room here so that he can, light up the area and generally just sort of spout off because he's a little nuts. I'm going to keep him away from firearms as best I can because he has a sort of history with them. He's a little crazy. Anyway, I'm talking about Dean. Dean, our resident gun nut lamp. He actually has decided that he wants to pay a visit to me around, very close to Christmas time, as a matter of fact. So, I am immensely looking forward to that. And we were just going through flights last night, a little late, I know, but that's the way it goes. And I was like, well, how far are you willing to drive? Because I wanted to give the Amtrak thing a shot. Now, Amtrak can be pretty reasonable in terms of price, especially if you're using a long-distance train, which he would be using for part of his run. And I figured, it's worth covering all the bases. I didn't figure it was going to be super fantastic or anything, but it's worth covering all the bases. So, so how about it? Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but it was like, well, they can be competitive, and they were relatively close. I mean, Amtrak was coming out to around $600 for a round trip, and flights were in the mid-400s. Now, that is still a pretty significant difference. It's $150. But, I mean, is it $150 of hassle? And those seats that were left were almost solely business class. Lots of money would have been saved if this was a few months ago, but that just goes to show that these seats go. Some of these long-distance trains might not be making a lot of money, but at least they have significant ridership. The average ridership on the Empire Builder, which is one of Amtrak's best long-distance trains, but, it's a good example anyway. Is like 1,200 people a day or so, and that was as of 2016. So, what does that mean? Well, if we figure, there are probably 2 trains in each direction on the system at a time, then we have 300 people per train in each direction. That's not bad, if you divide 1,200 into 4, that's not bad. That's a few Superliners worth. That's actually pretty decent in terms of ridership. And in terms of, capacity of the train. So, anyway. I don't know. It was just an aside. It was a thought I had. It was a conversation that I'd had with him last night. I'm eager to know if he has run it by his folks yet. And because I'm sure you guys are all eager to know, I'm going to write him a message. Any news? That's not the A button. Oh, and Discord has an update. I wonder what that gives us. What sort of goodies are we getting this time? Oh, we're so close. We're tantalizingly close to getting this done. It will mean so much if we can do this. Now, like I said, if you guys want me to do a specific thing, because I know it's been a lot of grass and a lot of communism for the past few weeks, but this is important, you can say so. I mean, do you want me to work on do you want me to work on these fields? Do you want me to work on Lionhead? Do you want me to work on, I don't know, whatever the hell is left, the bridge work site, or the stuff down here? Say something. If you think it would be interesting to hear me talk about and think through, excuse me, then that is fully up to you guys. I am going to go with the shrubs only a little ways because we don't need them. So, I wish there was a not overwrite setting, because, so, the thing with the terrain stuff is that, particularly for buildings, right, if you have a bunch of buildings, or the copy-pasting stuff, sorry, if you have a bunch of buildings, and you paste a bunch of buildings on top of them, there are two options. Either keep the buildings that already exist and copy and paste the buildings on top of them, or delete the buildings that are in the way and paste the buildings in that spot. Paste the new buildings. Usually I use the second option because if I'm pasting, I don't... if I'm pasting huge blocks of trees, which is what I'm almost always pasting, as you guys know, then I don't really want to create the situation where I'm now creating ever denser portions of forest, because I don't want to, because I am copying over the same, I'm pasting in the same section again. Sorry. Okay, so let's do this while we're here. Let's go to wireframe view, enter the grid. There we go. I've been using grid mode a lot for the modular. No modules submitted yet, but I am excited for whatever the first one may be. We have 4 locked in on the spreadsheet that people are working on. I, myself, am working on... I'm not actively working on any right now, because the ones that I have to work on are the kind of thing where I will only really need them to attach to other modules. The one thing that I was thinking of doing is building one of the portal modules first so that I can have something going on. And, maybe I'll run a stream with making a portal module or something like that. But so far I've made the center module, I've made one of the corners, and I've made 2 interlockings and 2 straight lines, which the interlockings are basically straight lines just with an interlocking in it. Surprise, surprise. So, that sort of thing. I am going to be doing the AI sort of like Tolbrin, except not on a 24-hour cycle. The cycle will be basically as quickly as possible. Something that I might do is build a module that's a train stacker, which is the kind of thing that I was talking about originally that we could have in Tolbrin that would build, it would basically just be an AI thing that built trains for you. Call it the Unlimited Stuff Works or something, in honor of Dean the Maddened Lamp. And, in there I could have a whole bunch of multiple industries doing all sorts of things. But really, the thing that I could/should be doing is looking at the first module that comes in and trying to build some sort of reprisal to it. If I have a module that takes in lumber, then go build something that produces lumber. If I have a module that takes in, or a module that puts out coal, go build a power plant. That sort of thing. And so that way I can have stuff running, and I'll build these cheap and dirty modules, or at the very least tell people, hey, we have this commodity coming out that doesn't have a destination. If you build a module, it'll go in wherever you want it, and then, then I can attach, or then I can run AI trains to it. It's also going to let me play around with some of my payware because, these modules are not necessarily designed to be multiplayer. I didn't mandate that they were designed to be multiplayer compatible. So, despite the fact that I may have a modular thing, a copy of the modular railroad with only DLS-friendly modules, because that's a thought that I've had, I may also have the main copy that is just hooked up with as much cool stuff as I can fit in it. Of course, if people seed their modules with trains, etc., then that's a different story, and that's the kind of thing where I will, be using whatever is left there for me, first and foremost, before I go and add other things. But if I get modules that all the things are in the session layer, of course, and when you merge them you lose the session layer, that typically tends to happen, then I'll be adding my own stuff. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this whole module thing. It's going to present some really interesting challenges for me, even more so than Tollbrand has, because despite Tollbrand being just absolutely stunningly chock full of interesting challenges, they're all of my creation, really. So, having it caused by somebody else is going to be a nice little change. Let's pop out of wireframe view for a second. So this is a small farm. This is another small farm. Well, this one's actually kind of sizable. This area down here really is not going to get much in the way of trees, although this area probably is. We need to work on this peninsula. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go along the back, just so we have less stuff here. And I'll do it in portions. We'll do up the highway first. I'm so paranoid of it crashing because that's going to be the end of the episode. And the moment I come in here and start deleting trees, it's a whole nother ball game. God, I'm friggin' terrified. I'm not gonna lie, I'm terrified. It's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. I don't want it to crash. And we're missing a portion with trees there. We're missing several portions with trees. Where have all the trees gone? No, seriously. Where have all they gone? Where have they all gone? Did it crash and we lost that? Because this forest down here is definitely denser. Let's grab this anyway. I think we're going to have to replace some of the trees up here, some of the sections up here, because, first and foremost, now we have sections that are just bald for no reason. Oh, there we go. There we go. Everything showed up. Okay. Still, though, it's a little bald. I don't necessarily like how thin the forest is in some of these places. Oh, and we missed. I'm gonna rotate it by a quarter turn every time. That way we don't freak out the game too much, but at the same time we definitely get some randomization. Yeah, once we cover all this highway up, we're going to have a totally different ball game when it comes to getting these, when it comes to the next step. Because it's going to be a positively immense amount of tree clearing and that really touchy texturing that we have to do. That's typically, that you have to do along the highways and railroads and such. But, people should take note. And I hope I covered all the comments today as well as I could. I'm not sure if I've got... what was it? Oh, the Tesla truck! Oh, yes! That's what I wanted to talk about. That is the other thing that I was neglecting. There were two things. No, there was a Tesla truck. There was... Because that came about in the middle of the thing. There was the... other thing that I wanted to talk about, I can't recall what it was now, and then there was the slap fight I started on Reddit. What was the other thing? Oh, goodness. I cannot recall. It was not political, so that's out the window. Oh man, I really want to know now. I said it at the beginning of the show, so if you guys want me to cover whatever it was, you can say something. I don't remember. Oh my god. But the Tesla truck. It's called the Cybertruck, because of course it is. Here comes Elon Musk to save the day yet again. In a way that nobody really asked for, but why not, dude? Why not? He's making an electric truck which looks like something out of a low-poly video game. It looks like Lara Croft's tits, is what it looks like. But what the heck was that? I thought I just heard somebody pull in the driveway and then pull out. Whatever. I don't really know, like, I'm so conflicted on the very existence of this truck. On one hand, Tesla's making a pickup truck. Isn't that cool? And it has, it's supposed to have on the top model, oh, my back is so tight, like 500 miles of range, and also, like the tailgate folds down to be like a walkway, like a ramp up to the bed. It's supposed to have like 15,000 pounds of towing capacity with its absurd range. I don't know what to think. It sounds awesome, but it looks bizarre. I didn't watch the press conference, although I'm aware that they were bragging about how strong the windows were and then broke the windows by accident. But they didn't, like, shatter, so I guess there's that. Like, they broke, but it's not like they broke into a million pieces. I think, methinks Elon Musk had a sort of flawed impression of what bulletproof glass actually did when you shoot it. The bullets don't just bounce off. It does break, but it just doesn't let the bullet through. Again, allegedly it was bulletproof glass or something like that, and they broke it. I saw a picture of Elon Musk looking kind of sheepish next to the truck that had broken windows. So, yeah, it's an interesting development. We'll see how it stacks up against the Ford F-150 that's electric, and also how the Ford Mustang that is electric stacks up against, well, everything else. That's an interesting looking car. It's sort of like a fat Mustang, isn't it? I don't think, like, a lot of people are upset about the application of the Mustang label to that car, and I can see why, because it doesn't look very Mustang-y. I mean, the headlights are there, but that's kind of it. It looks, again, it looks sort of chubby. It's a fat horse. But the other thing is that it's an SUV thing. They called it an SUV. I don't think it's an SUV, honestly. I don't agree with that characterization of this vehicle, even though that is their characterization and they made it. But, whatever. I don't agree, therefore it doesn't matter. This is the world we live in. No, but for real, it's not really an SUV, is it? It's not... maybe my sense of scale is thrown off from the pictures or something, but it doesn't look like it's SUV size. It looks more like a hatchback or a crossover or something, It looks closer in size to the Model X than it does to, a Ford Explorer, for example. So, I don't know what I think about this. Again, we'll really have to see. Again, the Mustang, we can probably assume that it's going to look like that in the end. It's a Mustang. It has the headlights, that's about it. There's not really much else to say. It's cool that they're building that Ford is doing this with electric cars. I feel like it wasn't the best marketing decision to make this a Mustang, but that wasn't my decision to make. At any rate, as for Truckzilla, Cybertruck, sorry, box truck, literally. As for the box truck, we really are going to have to wait and see what they come out with, because this is the concept. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the truck is going to look like this, like a low poly vehicle, or like a low poly Warthog is what it looks like. We don't know that it's going to look like that when it hits the market, because it is a concept vehicle, basically. That said, we don't know that it's not going to look like that. This is Elon Musk we're talking about. I wouldn't be surprised if it looks exactly like that when it hits the shelves, and people still go nuts for it, because this is a Tesla truck. People that don't want to wait for the Ford F-150 electric truck, or don't want to put their trust in Ford, they'll probably flock to this thing, and Tesla owners, or people that, maybe are not Tesla owners yet, but just need an excuse to buy one, they'll run to it too. I have no doubt. Elon Musk put out a oversized propane torch and called it not a flamethrower, and people went nuts. I'm not saying that he isn't awesome, but I will say that, boy, he has fanatics. Personally, I think he's an alright guy. I think he's done a lot for pushing tech like SpaceX, for reusable rocketry, and Tesla for, not just electric cars, but also automated vehicles and stuff like that. And I think he's got a lot of innovative ideas, and I would like to see them get applied. I, don't know about the guy personally. He's sort of a wacko, but then what else are you going to be when you have that much money and that much power? If you are normal, you don't get that much money and that much power. If you're normal, you work for that guy. That's what happens. I'm not saying go nuts, literally, but I am saying it sort of comes with the it comes with the territory, is the word I'm looking for. I will not be buying a Tesla truck, for those curious. It's not exactly in my price range, probably. I don't actually know what the price is. I'm not sure they've revealed a price for either the Cybertruck or the Mustang, but I'm not about to be buying either of them. If I'm buying another car, I'm buying another Volvo wagon, probably, hopefully with a turbo. Not hopefully. If I'm buying a third Volvo, it's going to be exactly what I want. That's the thing. It's, so I had my 940, that's what I have now. It's the antique. The one that's registered as antique. They're both antiques. I gotta come back to that thought. Anyway. So I had that one from when I started driving, basically. It was a gift to me. I know, I'm spoiled. But I made mistakes with that one. And from there, I, got another car, which I had for a number of years through college and liked it quite a bit. It was another Volvo. It was an 850, which made me fall in love with the Volvo 5 cylinders, but I'm not sure I would go back. Then that thing started to go out on me, and I was like, alright, it's time for me to buy another car, or I want another car. I want to have I just got in my head, I really want a 240 wagon. It's the iconic car. I want to get my hands on one. I have the money for it. Why not, right? Okay. And now I'm just going through, the slim pickings, relatively speaking. They aren't that slim, but relatively speaking they are, because it's an older car. It's not like you're going to go down to the dealership and pick up one. So I'm going through Craigslist and stuff, and I'm looking for a car that matches what I need it to be and what I want it to be. Something that's not in terrible condition, because I can't do most of that work on my own and I don't have unlimited money. but is the make and model and relative stretch of years that I want. I knew I wanted a 90s model, a 91 to 93, because I think they did the facelift in 91, where they added the big square headlights instead of the dual headlights. And it also got past all of the electrical issues that had plagued the early 240s, or the early 200 series. I knew I wanted it to be a 240. I knew I probably didn't want it to be a turbocharged one. I didn't want it to be a manual. The turbo is more work, and I have never been good at driving stick. And I wanted something with the third row seat. And I eventually settled on something without it, but I managed to pick up the seat on eBay for cheap, relatively speaking. It's still sitting in the back of the car and hasn't been installed, but that's neither here nor there. I went out and got that, and my other car was going out on me, so it was partially a situation of I finally found what I'm looking for, and partially a situation of beggars can't be choosers. So, I paid not too much for it. I paid like $2,200 or so, which is pretty good for a car. Ended up giving me plenty of issues, but it's an old car. What do you expect? But now that I have my 940 back in service, and the 240 it seems to have gotten over most, if not all, of its teething troubles. Although bits of plastic inside keep breaking off, so I need to go and find new interior pieces, or maybe have them 3D printed or something. Since then, if I'm going to get another car, I'm going to be both a beggar and a chooser, or I'm going to be very much more a chooser than I am a beggar. There is no necessity for me to get a third car. It is purely desire. And because it's purely desire, that means I can spend plenty of time finding the right one. And that means, in part, looking outside of my normal comfort zone in terms of location. It means looking outside of my normal comfort zone in terms of even price sometimes. It is, it is really pulling apart, okay, what is the market for these right now, and what can I get? What can I get my hands on? What would be the easiest thing for me, and where would it come from, and what shape would it be in? You're looking for the unicorn. You're looking for the thing that is going to be in excellent shape and probably has relatively low miles on it and is the color that you want and is the exact, type that you want, because you have nothing but time to find this car. You can sit back and wait for the car to find you at this point. There is no rush. There is no, there's no fire, so to speak. And what was I going to say? There was something I got to come back to that now. I don't remember what it was. I had a thought, and then I forgot about it. Well, I stumbled upon one in Salt Lake City that I liked, and two down in Virginia that I also liked. But, right now it's still a pipe dream. I want that car. I cannot afford it right now. And more importantly, if I were to purchase it, then I would still need to go get it and bring it back. So that, in and of itself, presents another problem if I get it, then what? Then what happens? Do we get it back here? Where do we store it? There's not enough room in the driveway for it. Somebody would have to keep an eye on it. Currently, we've got 3 cars in the driveway. Both of my cars, Madison's car. We have a garage that can fit another car, which would be our roommate / tenant or whatever. And, because we have to get all the cars off the street when it snows. If you live in an area with municipal plowing, you know how that works. And that's the same here. Technically, you're not supposed to leave your car on the street in Providence anyway, but we're in a part of Providence where it really doesn't matter. So that's relatively unimportant, but it's worth bringing up. So, just as an aside. So, where would I put this car if I got this car? It becomes more and more clear to me that looking down the road, no pun intended, the best case is for me to just cool my jets about this whole situation, obviously. And then in the future, when we have, maybe no tenant, because we're, I don't know, whatever, looking at starting a family maybe, or something like that, then, or maybe even after that, looking ahead 30 years, if you can still find a car that is human drivable, and if it's still legal. But what was I saying? Maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll wait on this until I'm in a much better position, either, just because more time has passed or whatever. Maybe that's the right course of action here. You've got to step back and look at this stuff. Life is short, but life is long. You can wait 30 years for something and still be able to do it, even if you're already 30. Most people, when they're 60, they're still pretty capable of doing things. Especially if that thing is owning a certain vehicle or having a certain hobby. Maybe if that hobby is rock climbing, not so much. But time waits for nobody, but as short as life is, there's plenty of time to do plenty of things. Lots of people restart their whole lives, after going through rough periods. You go back and try again with all new people, new city, new job, everything. People do that. People still have time to do that. And that's, that's something that I think is important to remember, just as well. Madison, unfortunately, had one of her camp friends pass away recently. I believe it was actually just a day or two ago. And it's apparent that she committed suicide. And based on my understanding, I didn't know this girl. I just, saw secondhand the posts about it. And, she didn't feel loved. She didn't feel wanted the way that she was. And, I think it's important to remember that even if it feels so helpless that the people around you, all of them, they don't care for you or they don't listen to you or they treat you terribly, even if all of the people around you are like that, that doesn't mean that all the people in the world are like that. And it doesn't mean that you can't go and find the people who aren't like that. It's worth, if you feel like you've hit rock bottom and you have nowhere to go, get going. Get moving. Get out to the world. Get out to meet people that you can love and that can love you. I'm not saying to run away from your problems, but I am saying that if things truly seem insurmountable with the situation that you're in, you can start again. It's not, to try again is not to give up. That's my message for today, I guess. Alright. We are running out of grass, which is unfortunate, because we've done quite a bit to get to this point. Now I'm going to run out of grass. We have a lot of edge work to do, but look how far we've come. Just look at it. It's glorious. We also have only 7 minutes left in the video, so I'm going to do grass up to here. And I'm not going to touch that river because we need to do some work around the river spline. I want to fill in all these gray bits, and then next episode we'll probably start out with trimming a lot of trees back and probably several game crashes, if we can expect what we are used to, anyway. What was that? Oh, somebody's bringing their bins in. It's Friday, dude. The bins go out on Tuesday. What are they still out for? Whatever. People get busy. I understand. I get busy sometimes too. Okay. I'm trying to do more edge work here because, I decreased the size of our paste area. We've got a few minutes left in the video, and this is going the distance. This is, if the game crashes now, oh well. But here we are. We've made it this far. We have done a lot of work when it comes to getting these trees in place. And I am so excited to move forward with this. And I hope I answered everyone's, or, responded to everyone's comments as best I could. If there's something in particular you want to see me do, or something in particular you want me to talk about, that is what you leave a comment for. And I will read it aloud on the air, of course. I also didn't even have really any water breaks in this one, maybe because I didn't say much to anybody all day. And also maybe because I sat here and kept my mouth shut while I was brainstorming my Reddit comment. Something else I did today was make a terrible Photoshop of Garfield's face on 4014. So yeah, that's what my life comprises of, really. That's my outlet for insanity. I have too much to do, so instead I'm going to do this. I'm going to do something that has nothing to do with any of it. I'm sure you guys understand. Okay, so this is going to be an issue. This area is going to be such a bastard, and I'm not looking forward to doing it. But we can overrun stuff as long as there's nothing in the way. I can do that as long as I'm not interfering with that grass over there, and even if I am, I can just repaint it. So it's not the end of the world if we are basically putting stuff a little bit too far. I have been going nuts thus far this episode to get things in completely the right spots, but really it doesn't matter. That's why we come through with the tool, or with the deletion tool afterward, and clean up our mess. Because it's not going to be perfect. We're using a square tool to make rounded edges. So there's going to be some overruns, and there's going to be some things here and there, some areas where we just go over. And that's the reason I don't put trackside objects down, or even textures most of the time, near areas where I haven't done trees yet. So that we can come here and do this! But, yeah, we're going to have a lot of tree cleaning to do when we get back. That is going to be most of next episode. And then we need to finish up this coastline here. But look at that. Look how close we are. That is a difference, my friends. All that grass work has paid off. It has paid dividends. Alright. We will actually wrap up this episode, though. We will finish out this whole thing by going to... Also, Dean says his flights should be booked. That's good to hear. We'll finish up this episode by going basically as far as we can with this. Like I said, I'm excited about it. I really, really am looking forward to moving on. But I'm looking forward to having this completed, to being like, look, it's done, it's complete. That's the most exciting thing here to me. It's not necessarily about now we get to move on to a different version of trains and move on to a different segment of the map and, this, that, and the other thing. It's about we have something to show for our efforts, something completed, something genuine. Something that we can be proud of. As opposed to just in dioramas. So, or in, not dioramas, but what I mean is sections, looking for this camera angle, things look great, but if you turn the camera over here, it's all gray. That's what I mean. So, yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed. I definitely did. and we have lots to do still. But, oh boy, are we close. We finally have more done than undone. This actually might have been the tipping point today. And I love our rivers. I love our little river systems that show up and come and go. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next week. This is the Admiral, signing off.